right, so welcome to day number 6 of Vlogmas. We are halfway there, you guys. Thank you guys so much for hanging with me during this Vlogmas. We're almost there, you guys. So today we are going to be doing this wristlet right here. So I am not doing the trim links because I just do not want that detail. So what I'm going to be doing is basically the wristlet or the pouch with the loop. So it's 2 pattern pieces, less than a 2-hour sew, so we're going to go ahead and get right on into it. But if you need to know the supplies that you will need in order to construct this, I have a video linked in the description box below to the sewing toolkit. Also, in terms of notions, we are doing view C. So the only thing that you will need is a 7-inch all-purpose or exposed zipper. That's all you will need. You will need some lining. The lining needs to be at least 3/8 of an inch. 3/8 yards of fabric, and you'll need a little bit of interfacing. If you are doing the trim links, you need to get some paper backed web, fusible web. If you have never used fusible web, I showed you how to do that in my video for the backpack, which was the Mandalorian backpack using Simplicity 9619. There is a complete playlist to the Vlogmas sew alongs in the description box below as well. So you could go ahead and go to the playlist and then click on the backpack as well. All right. So this wristlet is going to be 5 inches high by 8 inches wide. Just to give you that, the seam allowance is a 1/2 inch seam allowance for all seams. All right. So now that I talked about that, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of the instructions now, and then I'm going to show you the pattern pieces. All right, so grab the instructions if you are wanting to look at the instructions for this pattern. So all we need is pattern piece number 12 and 13. If you are doing the trim links, you will need pattern piece number 14. So pattern piece number 12 is your front and back, and pattern piece number 13 are your loops. Now, essentially, this is like doing the cosmetic case. When we did the pouch, it's pretty much the same thing, nothing different. So like I mentioned, this will be a super easy sew for you. All right. So I did pick patterns that are super easy to sew. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into the pattern pieces you will need in order to construct this wristlet. All right. So like I mentioned, you only need 2 pattern pieces, pattern piece number 12 and 13. So pattern piece number 12 is the front and back of the wristlet. You need to cut 2 of fabric, 2 of lining, and 2 of interfacing, and make sure you apply the interfacing to your 2 main fabric. All right. And then the only other piece that you will need is pattern piece number 13, which is your loop or your wristlet strap. You need to cut 1 of lining. All right. So those are all the pieces that you need in order to construct this wristlet. So let's go ahead and get started with the sewing. All right. So go ahead and grab pattern piece number 12, which is your front and back. Now, what I want to say is I am using this fabric. Both of them are Ankara fabric. It's just from my scrap, but this will be my main portion. And then this one that was some leftover will be my lining portion. Like I mentioned, it's just some scrap fabric from my stash, and it is easier to do these as scrap builder projects as well. All right. So go ahead and grab your main fabric, just one of your main fabrics, and move the other one out of the way. And what you're going to do is go ahead and grab a zipper. Okay, so I am using a 7-inch all-purpose or exposed zipper. That's what it looks like. It's a 7-inch. Okay, and like I mentioned, it's going to take shape just like your cosmetic pouch that we did on day number 2. All right, so what I'm going to do is pin my zipper. I'm going to kind of open it just a little bit, move it back a little bit, and I'm going to pin my zipper to the top. Now you have dots, so make sure you are matching up those dots with the top and the bottom of your zipper as well. All right, so go ahead and pin your zipper in place. Now I'm just going to use some pins this time instead of my Wonder Clips, only because my daughter was doing some cleaning up and she put them away, and I don't want to run around trying to find them in the drawer. Okay, so let's go ahead and pin our zipper in place now. Now I have my zipper pinned to the main fabric. Now go ahead and grab one of your lining fabrics And you're going to place that right on top, just like we did for the cosmetic case. And then you're going to pin that in place as well. So all I'm going to do is just repin everything as well. So we're just going to do with right sides. The fabric should be right sides together. So the main part of your zipper should be on the right side of your main fabric, and then you should be pinning your lining fabric to the wrong side of your zipper, like we did for the cosmetic case. If you missed that video, you could go back and see that video as well, but it's essentially the same thing. All right, so go ahead and pin your lining in place. I'm just repinning like I just stated that I was going to. All right, so I'm putting this one in place as well. And now we're going to go to the sewing machine using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end, and then go ahead and sew that in place. Do that. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have my main and lining fabric sewn on, I went ahead and pressed it. So basically I just pressed it to where both of them are wrong sides together. And I'm going to do the exact same thing to the top. So basically what I'm going to do is make sure that I have, this is the right side of my zipper with the zipper pull. So this goes like this. Now I'm going to turn it over so you can pretty much see it. So I'm going to definitely pin just like that. Make sure that you are lining up your fabric the same way, okay? Making sure that you have that dot lined up with that zipper pull, and you want to pin. Making sure that your dots are also, your notches are also lining up as well, all right? So don't forget that those notches need to be lining up as well, all right? So then go ahead and pin your zipper to the other side now. All right, so now that I have it pinned, what I'm going to do is kind of open up the zipper a little bit, but do not sew on the zipper, if that makes sense, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the zipper back just a little bit to pretty much the center, but make sure you do not sew on your zipper when you start sewing this in place, all right? So you know that you're going to attach the zipper on at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. So go ahead and sew that seam in place now. And then do the same thing. After you do that, you're just gonna basically press the lining and the main fabric onto itself, wrong sides together, all right? So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have both sides completely sewn on to the zipper, I pressed it and then I top stitch on both sides of my zipper area. It's looking good. So the next thing we're gonna do is take the main fabric and with right sides together, and we're gonna have the right sides together of the lining as well. Next thing we're gonna do is we're going to pin it in place. So what you wanna do is pin the side seams on both sides. So we're gonna pin along this entire side on both sides. So go ahead and pin the main fabric in place now, and make sure you are matching up your notches on the side as well. So go ahead and pin in place now. All right, so now that I have both sides pinned, using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning, and then sew all the way down and back stitch at the end. Make sure you go slow over the zipper, and make sure you moved your zipper pull to about the center of your wristlet. All right, so go ahead and stitch both side seams in place now. All right, so now that I have both sides sewn, the next thing you're gonna do is close up the bottom. So because of this is the main fabric, you're gonna pin all the way across the bottom portion. This is actually the bottom portion of the main fabric. Make sure you match up the notches at the very bottom and pin all the way across. And then on the lining piece, you are going to leave about a 2-inch opening. I'm gonna say 2 inches, but I'm just gonna say, basically make sure your hand could fit in between there. So what I'm gonna do is use my hand, AKA the glove, and I'm going to open up the bottom and see if my hand could fit through there. So not all the way through, but it's enough to kind of like pull it out. So I'm just going to open it just a little bit more like that and move this pen over a little bit. So I'm able to put my hand in there without ripping anything. So yeah, I could put 4 fingers in, so that's good. So now I'm just going to pin the rest of the bottom of the lining portion. You only need to leave an opening on the lining, not the main fabric, all right? So now that I have the main fabric and the lining fabric pinned, using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, backstitch at the beginning and at the end, so all the way across. And then for the lining, what we're gonna do is backstitch at the beginning, get to this pin, and then backstitch at the end. Come to this pin, backstitch there, and then sew all the way to the end and backstitch, all right? Leaving this little area right here open. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the sides and the bottom of the main fabric done, I have the sides and the bottom done, with the bottom being left open. And I forgot to tell you to leave the side where you don't have the zipper pull. You have the end of your zipper. Leave that side unstitched a little bit, because you're going to be adding your loop right there, and then you're going to stitch it close. So I'm just going to open it up just a little bit more to have a little bit more room to work with, just like this. Okay, so it's just a little section open right here for my zipper. And then what I'm going to do now for the I think this is called the loop. Yeah, the loop. I'm just going to move my front and back out of the way, grab your loop, and what you're going to do is fold it right side, you're going to fold it in half, wrong sides together, open it out, and then fold to both of those lines as if you're making bias tape, right? After you do that, you're going to stitch all the way across close to the press edge, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take it and fold it in half just like this. And then all you're going to do is basically place this inside of your piece like so. So I'm just going to make sure that this is all the way in and secured on the inside, just like I'm doing here. You probably can't see it really good, but you want to make sure, and what I'm going to do is look for that zipper area and make sure that it's not getting caught up anywhere. All right, so I'm just going to maneuver. So I want to make sure that it is in there, but it's not taking up too much of space or anything like that. And I'm going to make sure that the ends are matching up, and I'm going to pin that where the zipper is. Okay, so now that I have that, the ends meeting up, I'm going to pin that in place. If you need your wonder clips, go ahead and use your wonder clips as well. Now I'm going to switch over to my wonder clips in order to hold that in place. All right, so I have my wonder clips, and I'm going to take that and pin that because it's a little thick right there. So I know I'm going to be moving really slowly over that. And basically all you're doing is starting at where you ended that stitching line at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. You're going to back stitch there, so slowly over the zipper area, and then back stitch at the end. All right, so go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I have the loop end sewn down over here, I went ahead and made my box corners on my lining and my main fabric. So now I'm gonna open this part that I left open from my lining. I'm going to move the zipper out of the way a little bit, and then I'm just gonna pull my wristlet out through that opening. All right, so just pull it out, being gentle not to rip anything, and just go ahead and pull it out now. All right, so this is what it looks like pulled out. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to take my point turner right here, and I'm going to poke out all those corners, like my box corners and stuff. I'm going to go ahead and use my fingers first to kind of poke out the box corner, and then I'm going to go in with my point turner and then poke it out. All right, so go ahead and poke out both sides of your box corners now. All right, so now that I have that poked out, what you need to do now Like, let me open up my zipper. This is what your wristlet portion is looking like. So now all you need to do is go ahead and close your lining piece up. Now, make sure you poke out that box corner there on your lining as well, on both sides. My box corner is done, and then all I'm going to do is go to the sewing machine first, press it, and then sew across to close that lining piece up. Okay, so I'm just going to pin there, and then I'm going to sew across and sew that piece up. All right, so go ahead, pin across and sew it down now. And you're just going to basically sew this close at about 1/4 of an inch or 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, back stitch at the beginning and at the end. Go ahead and do that now. All right, so now that I went ahead and finished up the lining, the only thing you need to do is go ahead and push that lining in just like this. And then once again, poke out your corners. Make sure your lining, the box corners meet up on the lining and the main fabric. And that's what it's looking like. And yeah, you are completely all done with your wristlet. Just make sure that you just put your arm in like this and you have a little wristlet that you could take. All right, well, that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for all the other 6 Vlogmas tutorials. We are halfway there. We made Simplicity 9589, and if this tutorial was helpful and informative, do not forget to hit that like button, subscribe button, also smash that notification bell so you are notified every time I upload a new video. Also, if you make this a nice, colorful, I'm gonna say use your scraps and make you a wristlet, don't forget to tag me in your project at Rochelle.Handmade.Designs. So that's it for this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, keep sewing.